Welcome to Organizational Sherlocks, the podcast where business meets psychology and your organizational puzzles meet their match.
Join us for captivating stories and practical solutions to unravel your toughest challenges.
I'm Dr. Elizabeth Fleming.
And I'm Morgan Ashworth, your guides to a prescription for business success.
Let's dive in.
Well, welcome back to Organizational Sherlocks, everyone. Elizabeth and I are very excited for episode 4. This is something that really is very meaningful to Elizabeth because we're going to get into the topic of alignment. But today we're going to be covering the importance of mission and vision statements in your company.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really exciting. And, as we had promised before, we will have a guest join us in our next episode, the fifth podcast episode. So this is kind of an opportunity for us to really set that foundation. And then we're going to hear from somebody kind of living in the world of building mission and vision statements. So be fun.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, first off, we should probably start by talking about what a mission statement is, what a vision statement is. I'm sure not all of our listeners, Elizabeth, know what those are or have even rarely seen them in their careers so far.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, I don't know if this has been your experience, Morgan, but a lot of people, I think, get confused about what they are or kind of mix them up a little bit. And so I think if we can give a little bit more of a foundation, that might be helpful for people. For those who haven't experienced it, but also those who are maybe examining the ones they have in place already.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And they can come in all sorts of ways, but it's just knowing what the difference between the two are. So without further ado, what is a mission statement, Elizabeth?
Yeah, so mission statement is really a very short paragraph, maybe even a single sentence that's really used to explain why does an organization exist? What does it do and for whom do they operate? So it should be relatively short, not a huge long paragraph that's descriptive about everything, but something quite short. So I don't know, Morgan, what your experience has been with that and with developing mission statements and all of that.
Yeah, so I have developed a mission statement or a couple of different mission statements at this point in time. One of my favorite ones that I've developed is the one for our current company. It is a small paragraph, so it definitely has a few sentences in it. It's not the one sentence type of mission statement, but that's because what the company does is so interesting and different, and the different industries we touch with with the company. And so because of that, the mission statement's a little bit longer than I guess your average one. But it talks about what the company does. It talks about with what types of customers we work with. It talks about the team that's involved within the company. It talks about the product. Talks about a little bit about what we hope the company brings for meaning to people as well. So yeah, mission statements are definitely super important because it's the setting stone for what a company is. It's kind of the summary of the processes and the people involved in a company.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think there's some really cool ones out there too. I mean, I don't know if we have a lot of listeners that are coffee drinkers, but they can be kind of fun. And out of curiosity, do you know what the Starbucks mission statement is?
I do not think I know what the Starbucks mission statement is.
I have to tell you, I'm a Starbucks fan. I can't help it. So theirs is to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. And I just think that's kind of fun. It's a different way of looking at it, right? It's not as academic or, as formal, but it really is exactly what they're out to do. And I will tell you, coffee nurtures my human spirit. So that I can say that I think they are accomplishing what they set out to do in that way.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing the Starbucks mission statement. For the listeners that obviously you don't know, but Elizabeth and I started our conversation today talking about coffee and tea. So it's fitting that we're talking about Starbucks now. So Starbucks is one of my favorite as well. I can't. I call myself a diva when it comes to coffee. I love my cappuccinos. I love my espresso with the with the foam milk in it. So
Absolutely.
one of
I
my
am with you
favorites.
100%. Now you've got me wanting coffee though. So
Yeah.
I'm maybe have to get one a little bit later.
Yeah.
But back to mission statements, right? I mean, I think again, it's kind of an idea of who are they serving, right? And so, if we take Starbucks, which I think across the world, most people know or have heard of Starbucks. So you think about that, and it's true. They're serving us, or their mission is to serve all of us, right? And they do that by really focusing in on making sure that experience, right, and the people that are working in the Starbucks locations are doing just that. They're helping to serve each person individually in the way that they kind of, or what they're looking for. So not that I'm like a huge whatever. I love Caribou coffee too. That's a Midwest thing, at least, or it was for me. Started here in Minnesota where I live, but I thought that was a good one to share.
Yeah, I
So.
think that's a great one. And honestly, a lot of the taglines you hear about from companies, they are their mission statements. They are their vision statements. Or they could be some of their like clear actions that they're trying to succeed with. So,
Right.
but a lot of those taglines you hear, I mean, Duncan, America runs on Duncan. I'm not quite sure if that is their exact mission statement. I'd have to look that up. So don't think that that's what their mission statement is. I'm not quite sure, but that's one of their taglines, and I'm sure it falls within their mission and vision statements as well. I know the company I work with, or some of the companies I work with, they do have taglines pulled from their mission statements, whether that be the paragraph, like one of the sentences from the paragraph, or they create mission statements for their departments. I know I've helped create a safety commission mission statement, and that mission statement's posted for the whole company, but you see some of the taglines come in there. For example, the awards company I work with, one of our taglines was "Our quality always finishes first." And the Safety Commission, now their mission statement talks about safety finishing first at the company.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's important too. Companies have mission statements, but what you're describing is kind of creating a culture of supporting and advancing missions, right? So it's not just about the company itself, but it's about the teams, and it's about the departments, but I would also even argue it's about the individuals. I know that our guest that we'll be having on our next episode, talks a little bit about personal missions, and having a personal mission. And while I don't think I have one that's formally written out, a mission for me is just to make sure that everything I do is in the goodness of helping others, or in the way of helping others. And so that really, I think for me, manifests in kind of this level of integrity and honesty that's so important to me. But then really, it gives me pause at times, because I think, is this choice that I'm making right now going to help me to help others, right? And if the answer is no, then that doesn't align with my personal mission, and so maybe it's not the best choice in that moment, right? So I'm talking individually, but in working with companies, in my work, that's a question we ask all the time, when they're making big decisions, or they're building their strategic plan, kind of going back and saying, before we put this, ink on paper, does this align with what we're trying to do?
Yeah, definitely, Elizabeth. Honestly, we all have a personal philosophy on life. That's what I tend to say, instead of talking about my mission statement necessarily. But I have a philosophy on life, and I'm sure everyone does. We all describe it in a different way. You describe it as a mission statement. I'm describing it as a philosophy of life. Other people just describe it as morals, perhaps. But you need to make sure that your philosophy on life matches the mission statement or the philosophy of the company you're working with. It's super important to have that alignment, and it allows there to be allows there to be coherent expectations among individuals in a company. So not just the leaders, but the employees in the company, no matter the level of the employee, the customers of that company. It creates alignment in the sense of everyone's working towards the same goal: the customers, the employees, the leaders, the owners of the company. And so mission alone, with that small summary of a company, but creating a higher meaning of what the company's doing at the same time, with the typically the symbolic nature that a mission statement has really creates that alignment you're discussing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it gives a kind of a common language too, you know, not that it's necessarily the same words, but it's that idea of kind of rowing in the same direction. People know what they're there for and what they're trying to do. And so, the companies that, I've worked with some pretty small companies as well. And that hasn't, they maybe hadn't put as much time and energy into developing a mission, but the ability to do that can actually be really powerful. Just the experience of getting together an executive team or getting together, owners of a company to identify that mission, kind of what is like, what are we trying to do right now in the present? The experience of building that is really powerful, but then of course, kind of the ripple effect of that and what they can accomplish is pretty cool to see too.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, knowing you've helped create mission statements, how do you typically build one?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways that people can do that, right? I really think one of the most important things though is to just kind of brainstorm, think about things, write things down. I've even worked with some nonprofit organizations and had them do like word clouds. If you were to think about, the most important things of kind of what you're here to do day in and day out, what are those things, and really looking for some commonalities. And so that's been a big thing for me, and kind of how I like to go about it is to really just start by throwing it all out there and then seeing what sticks.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just like when we create taglines for marketing, I work with our marketing team at the company I internally consult with, and we just create lines upon lines upon lines for marketing, and we constantly edit them, we combine them, we get rid of some, but those are what we use, and in the end, you slowly see it affect, like, adding to our mission statement or changing the mission statement. Our mission statement's been the same for years upon years now, but at first, before we had the mission statement, that's what we were pulling from, was all those marketing lines that we'd used. So it's about marketing yourself, not just externally to customers or potential clientele, but marketing yourself internally to your own employees too. For me, you're supposed to answer a couple different questions in your mission statement, right? So I wrote them down, so that's why I'm going to be looking to the side for those of you watching us. So how do you build that mission statement? You want to answer a couple key questions through your mission. Even if it's not specific on those questions, it at least answers them in some way, or it creates a greater curiosity for wanting to answer those questions, right? So who does the organization serve? That's one question. So Starbucks, they clearly talk about it. They're serving everyone. They're serving people of all sorts in all sorts of neighborhoods. They're serving. What does the organization do? So Starbucks, they create coffee, right? So their mission statement is going to touch on the creation of something, even if they don't say coffee. It's still something that they talk about. And then why does the organization do it? Those are super important factors. And in creating your mission statement, you might not be consciously answering those questions when you're throwing things at the wall and seeing if they stick, right, Elizabeth? But you could be answering these questions just in creating this terminology. But those are typically the three questions you want to be able to answer.
Yeah. Well, and with the Starbucks example, right, their why, I would imagine, is the idea of nourishing the human spirit, right? And I think that's kind of it's cool to me because it's also a kind of a play on words, right? Where it's, yes, we're nourishing the spirit, but also offering nourishment via food and drink, right? So I think that's pretty cool, but there's that why.
Yeah, you stole the word right out of my mouth. I was going to say they're playing on the wording of it. So they're providing nourishment, but they're also talking about nourishing the soul.
Right.
There's one extra question that sometimes people ask, and it's how does the organization do it? Make their product, or serve? How do they do it? And that's one piece that's actually super important to my company. We are a very sustainability focused company, and so we're making medallions and awards out of recycled material. And so because of that, we talk about sustainability, we talk about recyclability in our mission statement. That's why it's our mission statement is probably a little bit longer than the average one because
Sure.
it's important for us to touch on that. And because of that, we attract all sorts of different customers and employees that we wouldn't necessarily have attracted prior, thanks to that mission statement.
Yeah. I think that's a good point because I mean, I know that when and I don't know if this is true for you, Morgan, but I know when I am looking up, where do I want to go or what company do I want to work for? Or, if I'm looking for help around my house and I need to hire somebody for that, I actually look to see what people's mission statements are. Like that's important to me, and so for me too, working internally, or working rather kind of as a consultant, working externally, but internally in the company that I work at, it's important that we have that mission, and that we highlight that so our clients know what we stand for, and what we're trying to do. So.
Yeah, definitely. I completely understand that. Talk to me a little bit more, Elizabeth, about alignment. So we've talked about alignment, but we haven't necessarily talked about it purposefully. Yeah, I feel like. So I'm sure some of our listeners are hearing us say the word alignment and are wondering what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think alignment can mean a lot of different things. It's something that I've thought a lot about, kind of over my life, if you will. Because in all honesty, and I know I shared this in a previous episode, but I didn't take the straight and narrow path for my career, for my life. Like there has been kind of a lot of weaving in and out of different places. And so alignment was something that just kind of gave me it was like a stabilizing force in my life, right? Where just because like what is alignment for me doesn't have to be the same as alignment for you, right? We can have our own thing, but really the way that I see it is just making sure that we're living with intentionality and that we're making choices that are in alignment. I can't think of another word right now, but are in alignment with our values, with our personal missions, with kind of the direction we want to go. And so when I think about alignment, it really is just that in whatever way, whether that's, your career, your family life, your spirituality, your health, all of those pieces. For me, it's bringing it all together in a way that kind of helps you feel solid. And again, is that stabilizing force in your life and a place that you can go back to as well. And say, hey, am I living in alignment? And if not, well, then what can I do about it? Thereby kind of giving yourself power about kind of where you're going and what you're going to do.
Yeah. Thank you, Elizabeth, for expanding on what alignment is, especially to you and what you consider it, because we're going to talk about alignment throughout this podcast, especially during this month, talking about mission and vision. So I want you guys to get a better sense of what Elizabeth and I are talking about when we use that term alignment, because mission is so important for the fact that it aligns individuals. It aligns individuals throughout the company. It aligns the processes within a company. And so because of that, alignment to the mission alone is important. So not just alignment to your own mission in life, but to the mission of the company, ensuring that everything is cohesive, working as a cohesive team, and very collaborative. It's important to have that mission statement.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm curious because, we are talking about mission and vision. And so Morgan, from your perspective, what's the how would you define a vision statement versus a mission?
So oftentimes I'll talk about the difference a little bit first. So a mission statement is typically about the here and now. It's typically about the present day at a company. What does the company do? How do we do it? Who do we do it with? That's what the mission statement's all about. It's present day. This is the company. While the vision statement, it's focused on the future of a company. So it's the vision that the company has for itself and for the effects that it has on the community, the industry it's in. So typically it's some sort of desired image they want, or maybe they want to leave some sort of legacy or have this greater foothold in the industry for in some way, shape, or form. And so that vision is discussing that. I mean, we could talk about Dunkin's tagline, America runs on Dunkin'. That could have been a vision statement at one point in time, that they wanted Dunkin' Donuts to be across America. And guess what? I think they achieved that pretty well. They're definitely bigger in the Northeast. I do know that, being a New England New England home and grown girl. So Dunkin' is huge. And so to hear America runs on Dunkin', it might have been a vision statement at one point in time, but now we see it reaching that tagline, right?
Well, hey, good news. We finally do have them in the Midwest, just so you know. For the longest time, for many years, I would visit my sister on the East Coast, and I'd always go to Dunkin'. I was so jealous because we didn't have any here, but now we have one just up the street. So
Yeah,
I think they are achieving that.
I actually saw a video and it was talking about all the Dunkins in like in the country, and Massachusetts and New York have the most out of all of them. Massachusetts, for being such a small state, has over 1,000 Dunkins in it. I mean, the town I grew up in has I think at one point in time it's 6 Dunkins
In one town?
In one town.
Holy buckets.
Yeah.
Okay then.
So definitely America runs on Dunkin', I think.
I guess so. I don't know, but I guess it depends on where I'm closest to. Coffee is the is what it is. But yeah, that's that. I like what you said there, you know, about kind of the bigger vision, right? And I'm kind of thinking of how, like, like organizational Sherlock's, right? Kind of taking that play on being kind of investigatory. You know, I kind of see that vision as really, you know, it's like if you're an investigator, right? What's right in front of you, right? You're at a crime scene, let's say, if we're just gonna make that play, you're at a crime scene, you see what's right in front of you, right? That's your mission, right? But your vision is what happens when you put the binoculars on and you can see beyond, right? It's kind of that idea of, in my mind, it's just kind of like the explosive idea, or the bigger picture. Where are you trying to go, and what is that going to be? And I think one of the things you said about legacy, I think that's important. And it's so dependent on the people who start a company. There are some people who are a lot less driven or motivated by things like legacy or leaving a long-term impact, right? And so I think sometimes you'll see vision statements that aren't maybe about legacy as much as they are about kind of or less about a personal legacy rather, and more about the organizational legacy. But sometimes you'll see vision statements that are about a personal legacy. I see that a lot in family business, right? That it's important that the business succeeds, and it is this kind of transition from one generation to the next. And what is the vision that they're trying to achieve for 3, 4, 5 generations down the line, which I think is kind of cool too. So there's variation in that, but I like the idea of being able to kind of dream big, and you know, and then you have something to target too.
Yeah, exactly. And some people, they're not looking towards that personal legacy, like you said. And even then, when it comes to organizational quote unquote legacy, maybe the leader isn't necessarily caring about the legacy or what's going to come to with the company after they're gone. But in the end, it's still a company's or an organization's legacy, because even having a vision statement focused on solely the growth and success of the company, which is going to innately lead to the growth and success of that person, it's still the legacy. The company's still growing. It's still succeeding in some way, shape, or form. So even if it's just market share that you're looking for, your vision statement is not likely going to talk about market share. Maybe it does, but it's likely not going to, because you're going to have some deeper meaning in that goal. But the end goal could be market share. And you know what? It's still going to lead to a greater legacy for that organization.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think it's interesting too, because, you know, it brings up a question of why start a company, right? Why do people start a company? Just in general. Now, we're not talking about a specific industry or a specific type of company, but just in general, why do people start companies, right? And I think that often people start companies or they create products or whatever it is because they're trying to solve a problem, right? Something they've identified, right? You think about like the show Shark Tank, right? Everyone's on there because they identified a solution to something, right? some better than others, but still, definitely trying to, solve something. And I think that is, for some people, the solving of the problem is that legacy, right? Again, it's not the personal part of it. It's the fact that what I'm doing is solving a problem that is going to help somebody, that is going to make someone's life easier. And therefore, I have now impacted the world, right? In some way, shape, or form. And that can be the legacy as well, right?
Yeah, I feel like if you're going to grow that larger company, or a company that's more likely to grow, it's because you're solving a problem. It's because you're trying to help other people. Yes, you can start a company, and you can start a company just to try to earn money quickly and to earn more money. That's possible, but you still are solving a problem in the end. You're still helping yourself out, you're helping your family out, you're helping your close colleagues out. So in the end, you're still helping people, you're still solving problems. And so because of that, you still are developing something with a deeper meaning in developing a company.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I would completely agree. And I think that that meaning is important, for sure. And I know we're talking about kind of the big abstract, kind of like, what is a vision, and what do people do, and all of that. But do you see, Morgan, developing a vision as being similar to developing a mission statement, or do you see it as kind of a different process?
I see it kind of, I guess, a mix. It could develop with the mission statement. It could develop separate from it. So it really depends on the company. In my mind, I developed a vision statement with my team and my stakeholders at companies while creating the mission statement. Specifically, we created the mission statement, and the vision was the last line of it. It's where we're going. And then we took that line out of the mission and made the vision statement. And so it can be 100% connected to the mission statement, because it's the next question: where's the company going? Right.
Right.
But there could be a whole other process to developing that vision statement as well.
Oh, absolutely. So I know I feel like I keep peppering you with questions, but I'm curious, whose responsibility do you think it is? I mean, I have an idea in my head, but whose responsibility do you think it is to kind of go through and develop these statements, both mission and vision? Like, who should be involved in that?
So typically the highest level leaders in a company would be responsible for developing both the mission and vision statement. But oftentimes we'll also see external consultants come in, such as yourself or myself as an internal consultant, and help develop it. Whether people want to realize it or not, HR strategy actually plays a huge role into these, because we understand what the stakeholders of a company want to see, or how they see the company already. And so because of that, developing the mission or developing the vision statement, you might require the help of an HR team or a strategy team on your side, whether that be an external IO psychology consultant or another type of external consultant. So oftentimes we see it being the person that either started the company, the higher level team, but they might take into account what other stakeholders are saying. In my perspective, though, a company's success is really driven by the leaders of that company. So the way that leader perceives life, the way that leader perceives the company or perceives the business, is going to affect the course by which the business takes.
Yeah. Yeah. And how they tell that story that then trickles down throughout the rest of the organization.
Yeah, we're going to see those more charismatic leaders. They're going to take into account more of what their stakeholders want to see. And so because of that, the stakeholders may be involved in the vision statement or creating it. But in the end, it's because of that leader that the stakeholders were involved, right? Meanwhile, there could be other leaders that they create the vision statement in the vacuum box, quote unquote. And that's okay if it's going to be a successful vision statement that the stakeholders of the company are able to align with. That's fine. But sometimes we also see detriment to that effect, where a leader, if they don't necessarily have the best leadership type, or they don't necessarily have the best vision for the company, that company is not necessarily going to be as successful, because the vision statement that was developed isn't one that's going to lead the company into the future.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It's making me think about something I do with some of my clients, and I know we're talking organizationally, but we've also referenced teams. And
Mhm.
one of the things I do with a lot of my teams is kind of develop a team charter, if you will. And as a part of that, there's a mission and vision for that team, kind of an experience or a exercise where we go through and we develop that, right? And obviously keeping in mind the organization they work for and what they're driving toward, but more specifically then kind of drilling down a little bit for that team and what is their mission, what is their vision, and then helping them to define a charter that really kind of encompasses all the different people and kind of all the unique attributes of that team within the kind of the lens of their own mission and vision. And I think that can be, again, it can be a great connecting point too. It's going to talk about alignment again, right? It helps align people around a common, with common language and around a common goal.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Alignment is the end goal of a vision and of a mission statement. One is focused, like I said, on the present day, the mission statement, while the vision statement's focused on the future perspective or the future goal of the company. And so because of that, both of them are focused and have the purpose towards alignment of people, of processes, of anything involved in the company. And the team charter, that's a great example, Elizabeth.
Yeah. For those who don't kind of know about team charters and what that all looks like, I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways that people develop those. There's a lot of different kind of methods. I've seen so many that look so different, right? Because there's, of course, those kind of unique attributes, but ultimately it's around defining and understanding kind of who's on the team, where are we trying to go, how are we doing this, and really putting some structure around that so that they can operate more effectively. So for those who don't know what a team charter is, I think maybe, Morgan, that would be an interesting one for us to talk about in a future episode too, about kind of developing a team charter and how that can be beneficial, both at the not both, I guess all in kind of the individual level, the team level, and the organization level, and kind of how all those things interact. Might be a cool topic for us to talk about at some point.
Yeah, it definitely would be. Excuse me. I think it would be a great topic. I mean, we're going to be talking about company strategy at that point in time, I feel like, and that'll go well with that topic. But talking about strategy a little bit, the mission and vision statement are part of an organizational strategy. So without one, you're going to have a harder time creating alignment within the strategy. So if you don't have a mission statement, maybe everyone knows the course by which the company does its business, right? But with the mission statement, everyone definitely knows the strategy by which the organization does business. Same thing with the vision statement as well. And so in order to have the best strategy for your organization, having a vision statement, having a mission statement, those will be so important. Obviously, with strategy, each and every year is going to come a little bit of change. So strategy can make your company need to pivot one way or another based off of the economy at the time, the industry at the time. So I have a question for you, Elizabeth.
Yes.
Have you ever seen a company need to change its mission or change its vision to align with its current corporate strategy or the future success it's going after?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think that my experience, and of course it's limited to my experience, and so I'd love to hear what our listeners have to say or what they have witnessed as well. But I think the vision part of it is often it not that it always stays the same necessarily, but usually start kind of with this like big thing in mind, right? And so then your strategy is to achieve that big thing, right? And so you're putting things in place. So I have seen people make modifications to their mission statement because frankly what they're doing or who they're serving has evolved over time, right? I think about certain nonprofits, for instance, that I've worked with, who have maybe started working with one small population, right? And or in one region. I'm a chair of a nonprofit, and we did have to look at it, because where it had started 12 years ago was around one distinct kind of neighborhood or kind of community within the Midwest. And we've decided to expand. We have more resources. There's more need across the state. And so we've had to expand that and change that from being about the east side of the Twin Cities or whatever to being more kind of all encompassing. So while it didn't change the practices or kind of let's say the essence of it, the words themselves changed slightly, just so that we could expand our kind of the question of who do we serve.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a great answer to that question is yes, your mission statement or your vision statement, they may change. At the beginning of a company, they're probably going to stay stable for a solid amount of time. I typically don't see a mission statement change more often than every 5 at least years. Never mind, maybe more like 10 years. But it is possible to change your mission statement. And it could, like Elizabeth said, be surrounding the people that you're serving. That's one of the questions that people try to answer when they create their mission statement. And so if you're expanding to different industries, then that might be why the mission statement changes. So at the company I'm a chief people officer at, that's why our mission statement had to change a couple of years ago. And that's because we weren't just in the endurance markets and the sport markets anymore. We were working with higher level businesses. We were working in different armory-based businesses that we didn't think we would have ever worked with. And so because of that, our mission statement changed drastically, and solely to encompass these new individuals.
Yeah. It has, I mean, you have to evolve. Our lives change every day, right? And our world is changing too. And so I think that being able to kind of have the latitude to change when you need to is important. And I agree. It doesn't happen as frequently as one might think. It's not like every year they kind of go, oh, what does this look like? But, I've seen that with values too, values that organizations kind of write down. They look at it and said, yeah, these may be values that we had before, but, maybe the terminology or the way that we look at kind of different things, it's not how we see that today. And so while the essence or the kind of core might be the same, right? It might be stated differently. Like, so I think about, integrity, for instance. I think integrity was a value that a lot of people had previously kind of listed, in their values and their organizational values. And I've seen a lot of people go a little bit more, I'm going to say, more casual in recent years, where they say like, do the right thing, and the essence is the same. It's just kind of, I don't know, geared towards maybe the younger generation coming into the workforce. And I think that's kind of cool that you have that ability. You can still have the same essence, but stated differently.
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, even the states in the United States, we have mission statements. I mean, I live in New Hampshire. Our mission statements: live free or die. Pretty easy one, right? But I've only ever heard of one state that changed their mission statement, and that was Maine. They changed their mission statement a few years ago to better attract younger generation individuals to come into the state and work in their businesses, because they wanted to retain their population. A lot of people were moving out of Maine instead of moving into Maine. And so they changed their mission statement. They changed the tagline of the state.
That's really cool. I love Maine, back for what it's worth. So if we have any listeners from Maine, oh my gosh, it's one of my favorite places to go. So, okay, I have kind of a weird thought, and I'm curious if you'd be willing to do this with me, Morgan. Kind of putting you on the spot because I didn't pre-warn you about this, but I'm thinking about just our podcast, right? And organizational Sherlocks, and kind of what, we're relatively new in this. And if we think about our mission, right? I'm curious if you'd be willing to go through those 3 questions with me and just kind of say, in the context of our podcast, what we're trying to do, who we're trying to serve, and why. And you don't
Yeah.
have to do it. I'll do it with you. But I'm just like thinking maybe this would be kind of a fun thing to do together. What do you think?
I think it'll be a great example of how we ourselves work through this process. And so our listeners can kind of get an understanding of how they might work through the process as well.
I agree. Absolutely.
So I will say I do feel like we have a mission statement,
I agree.
because we have developed one in discussing what the podcast would entail. So Elizabeth and I immediately created a short description of the podcast, followed by creating a mission statement line that we have as a part of our name. So do you want me to start going through the questions? Would you like to start going through the questions first?
I don't know. It depends on if you want to be if you want me to be nice or not, because I totally threw this at you without warning you. But let's just go through them. Maybe let's do it together.
Okay.
Should we start with the what? What did we do?
So what does the organization do? What does organizational Sherlock's do in your mind, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I think in my mind, organizational Sherlock's is really here to provide education, to provide support, to provide a space where people can kind of critically think and reflect on the practice of industrial organizational psychology within the workplace.
Yeah,
that's the what for me.
Yeah, so I really do agree with that. I feel like for me, what do we do? I feel that we are using psychology in a business aspect, talking about our experiences, bringing on guests to talk about their experiences, and hopefully using other different case studies or other examples, like we talked about Starbucks, we talked about Dunkin', we've talked about Maine and New Hampshire, for example, using other real life examples that are easily accessible to our listeners. And so it's all about education. Both educating ourselves and educating the people we are talking to that listen. So thank you, listeners.
Yes. Yeah. No, I totally agree. So it's about providing education. That was a huge part of it. But I liked what you just said there about kind of expanding that. It's not just about providing the education, but it's also about us, you and I, learning as well. So, maybe it's not just providing education as the what, maybe it's
learning from each other, learning from our guests.
Yeah, like creating a space where education can be in the forefront.
Yeah.
So maybe it's about creating. Maybe the what is about creating a space versus us providing something to our listeners.
I think it is about creating a space, and I think it's a creating a space of education for ourselves, for our listeners, and in the end, through that education, solving problems as well.
Yeah. Well, I think we kind of got our what then.
I think we have our what. So who does organizational Sherlock serve? Who are we looking to work with, or who are we attracting to our podcast?
Yeah. Do you want to take this one first, or do you want me to?
I could take it if you'd like.
Right on.
So we knew that we would automatically attract IO psychology professionals, both of us being from the IO psychology space. But I also wanted to make sure that we would attract all sorts of business folks. I wanted to attract not just employees, not just leaders, not just managers, but I want to attract even the owners of companies. If you're in business and you're a person, you also are involved within psychology. People equals psychology to me. And so because of that, I feel that no matter who we are speaking to, I think we should be attracting all business folks of any tier.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think when I think about the who does organizational Sherlock serve, my immediate thought was humans. Simple as that, just humans. Although it'd be kind of fun if we, get some monkeys or something. Just kidding. That was a joke. Terrible joke.
No
But
aliens? No aliens?
Maybe aliens. I don't know. Who knows? That'd be kind of cool. But yeah, no. But I immediately thought humans, and then I thought, that's a little maybe too generic. So then I was thinking human, like curious humans, right? Just curious people who are curious and want to learn. Those are the people that I see organizational Sherlock's really being built for.
Yeah. Awesome. I love that. I think we might have our who as well. I think we're attracting the people who want to be involved in our space surrounding education.
Yeah. I agree. Well, then that leaves us with one last question, which is the why. Why do we do this? What's your why, Morgan?
So my why would be, one, Elizabeth and I are going to have these conversations anyway, so why not record them and put them out there for other people to listen to and learn from as well. So, I mean, I think we've talked about the why in talking about what we do, creating that educational space. We do it because psychology and the business atmosphere are ever changing. And so if Elizabeth and I are going to talk through it together and we're going to bring on guests that help us talk through it, and maybe we talk them through some of their issues they're experiencing, then why can't we do it with others as well?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think my thoughts are very similar in that. I think it's about creating um, a community of curious humans that are interested in education. Like that is the why, right? So for me, it's about bringing people together, which I think, you and I have talked a lot about. This is the reason we are not just it's not just you and I talking on every episode. It's why we're bringing people in from across the United States, maybe even beyond, who knows someday, but, bringing people in to really kind of add extra information, extra education, but also help us create a longer or a bigger and stronger community where people can connect and be together and continue to learn.
Yeah, I think it's about sharing knowledge.
I agree. 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so knowing that, do you want me to read our mission statement?
Please do. That would be great.
Okay, so I'm sure some of you have read this if you've seen our pages on LinkedIn. I think it's on Spotify as well. But so our name is Organizational Sherlocks, and we always have a comma, a business psychology podcast. So then when you go to our mission statement, it says a business psychology podcast that uses storytelling to help you solve your organizational dilemmas. So it's a simple one sentence mission statement, which we actually created from quite the description. Funny enough, but it turned into just a one sentence statement.
Exactly. Yeah. It was all that brainstorming that we did ahead of time, right? And then condensing it down to what we wanted it to be. So I think this is a really fun topic. And I'm, excited to, obviously put this one out there and then invite our first guest of our podcast in the next episode, Mr. Dan Stoltz. I think you'll be in for a really big treat with him and kind of learning a lot of different things. So again, creating that space so we can have education and just building that community further. So I can't wait for this episode to launch, of course, but then again, the next one as well, because it'll be really fun.
Yeah, so we're very excited to have Dan on. So he is the CEO of a couple merged banks, actually. And so he's going to talk about retaining and creating mission and vision statements throughout a merger. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about his personal life mission as well. And we're very excited to have him on to talk about mission and vision in a real life scenario, not just obviously our podcast's mission and vision, not just talking about some other ones we've seen, but talking about the process by which one had to be created / retained.
Yeah.
Merger.
Yeah. That merger for them was pretty big, right? And it brought different challenges. And so I think our listeners, will hear the good and some of the challenges, and maybe even, you've experienced it yourself or know somebody who has. And I think just kind of putting that all into perspective and having somebody else talk about it can be really cool. So I'm excited for that one. And yeah, I think maybe we wrap up for today. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we've given you guys a lot to think on. So think about your personal life mission. Read about your companies that you work for, their mission, their vision. If you own a company, if you don't have one, start creating one and determine how you can align the two with your current company and its stakeholders.
Yeah. And don't forget to share them with us if you're willing to, because I think that could be pretty cool as we build out this community, being willing to share what your mission is, whether it's your personal mission, your organizational mission. I think it'd be pretty fun for us to kind of pull that all together and see what they look like. So don't forget to comment or find us on LinkedIn and comment there. We are excited for what's to come. And thank you all for being here with us today.
See you guys next time.
Bye. This concludes another intriguing episode of Organizational Sherlocks. I'm Elizabeth Fleming.
And I'm Morgan Ashworth, reminding you that the journey to success is an ongoing investigation.
Stay curious, stay strategic, and keep utilizing insights to decode your business mysteries.
Join us every other Tuesday for your next Whodunit. This is Organizational Sherlocks, closing today's case.